Right, first of all, I'm just going to get a clean tone on the pod. So the problem I've got here is overdriving the microphone on the camera. Some of my guitar stuff's been distorted that I've put up on the web so far, and it's not anything to do with the pod or the amp, it's the microphone on the camcorder. It mustn't have an automatic gain control on it. So anyway, I'll try and keep the volumes a bit lower and have to check it before I go too far. So to get a half decent clean tone, this is quite quiet for me, but I don't want to go too loud. So crackly pickup. I'm going to just leave it at that. I think that's probably loud enough. So I've got the line and clean set on the amp model simulations, and I've got it over on the bypass at the moment. Now yesterday I found I'm going to take the effect tweak right off and scratch and no reverb. First thing I'm going to do is adjust the reverb because it's quite strong on this pod. Certainly if you turn it up, it's a bit too metallic-y, like a plate reverb for me. So just going to have a little bit of that. I'm going to put the delay on. Now, the tempo of the song I've had in my head is Eric Johnson's 40 Mile Town. So the tempo, the tap tempo is actually pretty much set for the tempo of that particular song. You want it to bounce sort of on the beat of the track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can start setting it on the quarter notes, which is too much. So you'd have to set it on twice of that, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that's better. So it's just a little bit too much. So I don't want the reverb, the echo to overpower the actual chords or go on too long. So with the effect tweak, I'll probably just leave it there for now. So that will probably do it. But anyway, what I want to talk about now, just a little bit, because I think it's important for any guitar player to know, or any musician to know at least some rudimentary theory, without getting involved in reading music. You don't have to. Most players that I know have never read a note in their life. I certainly haven't. And basically it's just a numerical way of looking at notes in scales. So provided you can count to 8, you can understand it. So taking the C major scale, the C diatonic, because everything else references this. So it's important to know this, even if you don't do any other music theory after this ever again. I think it's really important just to have a look at this and at least have a basic understanding of where the terminology comes from, like your, augmented 13ths and added ninths and stuff like that. There's nothing complicated to it. It's just a reference numerically from the C, the first note of C, which would be here, and counting up on the diatonic scale. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is now the root, starting the next octave again. So obviously 2 on the next one, so 8 becomes 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there's nothing more to it than that. So that's all it means when they add ninths. It just means that they've gone past the first octave, so don't let that phase you in any way. Okay, so going on to talk about, I mentioned Alan Holdsworth's talking about chord scales on his instructional video that I put a link to on the web. He uses probably quite complex examples because he's regarded as the absolute master in this field by probably every top guitar player on the planet. Why is that? Well, in his own videos he's explained that from an early age he wrote down everything on chord charts like that. I put a copy of that document on the web yesterday because you can move the dots around yourself. It's done in Word and I hope it can help some people. I did it for a friend a few weeks ago, so I thought, well, I may as well put it up there and it not be wasted if people want to use it. So going on to what he's talking about with chord scales, it just means playing more than one note and harmonizing them using only the notes in a particular scale of your choice. So for example, if you're playing the C major scale, which is we've played here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but on your starting note with the root would in this case be on the A string, and you would be climbing up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the root. Now, depending on what note you're harmonizing with, say the third for example, that would also climb in its mode, still using only the same notes in that scale. So the two together, provided I don't make any mistakes, that's purely just harmonizing a scale, two notes in a particular scale. Usually when you move with chords, it's usually the 1, the 3, the 5 and the 7 to create the chord scale using only those notes would be C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, the B flat minor 7 flat 5, which is the odd one out of the bunch because it's got a diminished fifth in it there. So if you were harmonizing just the fifths for that scale, you'd get so pointing out there that the 7th is the key one on the 7th degree because the fifths are a diminished interval apart there. So that's all it is. And that is just what he's talking about with chord scales. I want to extend on that a little bit while I'm here, because if we start that chord scale from the A minor instead, just because I'm a bit more comfortable with it and familiar, it would be the A minor 7, then that minor 7 flat 5, then the C major, etc. Back to the A minor. To give you the example of how you can use this yourself and to get an understanding how different chords can be formed and arranged, I'll just give a couple of examples how you can alter that to generate some new chords that you may not have heard before. So in the first chord we're only using the 1, the 5, the 7 and the 3. If we change just one note and say raise the 3 up to its next position in its scale, in its mode, you get a really nice fourth chord. So you've got the 1, 5, 7, 4. You can then do the same, for example, moving up the 5th to the 6th of the scale, and again you get a really nice 6/4 chord. So you can play around with that idea. So once you've got, say, to there, you can then move the other remaining 2 notes up to their position to become the 2nd degree of this scale, which is the flat 7, minor 7, flat 5. So I'll take a different position on the neck because it's really difficult to finger some of these chords. Work through them, work them out on paper if necessary first is the best thing to do, because then you can visualize them. I've done a chord scale chart of the C major scale, so you can try and find some of the chord positions that I've also done with the bass note on each bass string on the guitar, because you want to try and learn those positions as well as if you can. If you've learned, say, the A major 7 with the root on the second bass string, you want to be able to play it on B string as well and on the D string, because that way you can just play 4-note chords in more or less any position, and you learn those as best as you can for the various different types of chords that you're interested in. You'll have a good grounding, and it will start to unlock the neck for you and try and make some sense of this incredible mystery of this graphical display that we've got below us here in X and Y dimensions. Practically limitless possibilities, which is what Holdsworth's talking about when he's talking about there are thousands of scales, because you can break up an octave any way you want in theory, although obviously some of them are just not particularly musically palatable to most people's ear, or they'd just be too complicated. You spend all your life writing out chords on chord charts instead of actually playing any music. To give an example of how that works, if you choose a different scale, the other popular scale that I put an MP3 of playing over the top of one of the riffs is the A harmonic minor scale. So starting on A, it's, and that's an interesting scale because it has this big minor third jump from the 6th to the major 7. So if you harmonise that, you generate the same chords as you do in the C diatonic scale, except for the G dominant 7th. The chord that's generated in that place is actually a G sharp diminished, which gives rise to this scale gives rise to the full diminished chord, and one other, which is the first chord. So just using only the notes in this scale and harmonising again the 1st, 3rd, 5th and the 7th. The first chord is that, which is a 1, 5, major 7 but a minor 3rd, so it's a minor major 7. The second degree gives the same as the C diatonic scale, which is our minor 7 flat 5. Next chord's the same, but then we have the big jump to the diminished. Then back to our minor major 7. So that's an example of how you would harmonise any scale that you would like to choose. But the best way really is to be sure that you're playing the right notes. Is you would write out all of the dots of a particular scale, find them on the web or something, write them out on Move My Dot charts, chords along, to find those, get those notes in the right place, and then see where each, start with wherever you want to start as the root, and draw lines between them, say, so that you can see the shapes as they're moving up and down the neck. I hope that has made a bit more sense of the whole idea of chord scales. It's not particularly complicated. Maybe I haven't explained it too clearly. I hope I have, or I hope at least cleared some of it up for you anyway.